So I've had some thoughts on my mind recently, and this is something that has come to me a lot over the years. As I used to do coaching to teach people how to start a business, I would be asked, "Well, how did you become successful? How did you come up with that idea? How did you figure out how to start this business? How did you make money?" You know, all these different things. And as a salesman, same kind of thing. How do you achieve success as a salesman? How come you are better at selling or upselling or selling add-ons? And for many years, it's been kind of hard for me to define that, to figure that out. But as I've thought about it a lot lately, I think that I have some insights, and so I wanted to just share those. So to begin this process, well, I'll just share an example that happened recently. So while it's on my mind and I'm thinking about it, I pay attention to the way things go a little bit more. So this past week, I had a job right after our meeting where it was discussed, when you present the costs of extracting urine and doing all the cleaning and the add-ons, a lot of people will start looking at that big bill and think, oh, where can I shave off some money? And so what makes the difference between them saying, yeah, go ahead and do it, and, oh, take off this room, this room, this room, and this room? And I don't know if this is necessarily the answer to that, but this seems to be the way it goes a lot of times for me. And so I'm going to lay out a few ideas of what I did, what happened, and this is kind of consistently what I see happening with the way I do my presentations at work. So number one, I scan and get the details, and I don't cheat myself. I don't look at this and say, hey, I want this to be as cheap for them as possible. I look at this and say, I need to be paid for my time. The company needs to make money. It needs to make sense and be profitable. So I look at the details, and I did this with this recent one, and I went out and there was about $300 worth of cleaning. There was $50 or $60 in each of the CPR and disinfectant. And there was a lot of urine, and there were some areas, especially in a section of hall, 3x3 perhaps, or 3x4 section of hall, that was wall to wall. Big area, maybe a third to a half of a bedroom, where it was almost wall to wall. Large areas down in the hallways. So I knew this was going to take some time. I knew it was going to take some chemical. And so as I estimated that, I didn't undercut it. I estimated it at around $350 for the urine. Well, you add that to all of the cleaning, and we're over $600 for this job. While I was doing this, as I was going through scanning, the customer was right there with me, and she was seeing the areas, and she was seeing the different urine spots. And I explained while I was looking at that, you see that spot that's this big? Well, it's that big on top. That means it's this big underneath. You see that other spot that's this big over here, that far away from it? Well, those two are touching. And so that becomes an area this big that needs to be extracted instead of an area this big. And so just explain that a little bit. And then I went through everything. I started adding up the details, and then I presented to her. And I said, here are the options. This is what we can do. This is what the extraction does. It's pulling the urine out. We get as much of it out as we can. It's not 100%, but it's going to be better than leaving the urine in there, because that urine that's left down in there is what the bacteria is feeding on, and that's what causes the smell. Now, we can do a topical, and we can clean the stain that's on the surface, and we can clean some of that urine there. And after it dries, it'll smell good until it gets wet again, because there's still urine down under there, but that's an option. So here are the details. And I let her think about it. I mean, that's really where it is. My job ends, to a degree, ends at that point of, here's what it is. This is what it's going to cost. This is what we're going to do for that cost. This is what happens. It's not 100%, but it's a significant improvement. Leave it up to her. And I let her think about it. I let her look at the details a bit. And then she started thinking, and I think body language might come into play there. As I'm looking at this, I'm not looking at her, oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't pay that. I wouldn't want to pay that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm confident that I can do a great job at what I do. It's not 100%, and you need to know that. But my face is saying, I can do a good job of cleaning this and the best that you can get. It's not as good as replacing the carpet, sealing the subfloor, but it's the best that you're going to get. And I'm confident with that. And so that's my expression. That's my body language. And then I leave it to her. So she looked at that and she started thinking, wow, that's a lot. That's, what if we, how can we shave some off? What if we don't do some cleaning in some of the rooms? And I just explained, well, I'm taking into account here the worst areas. Basically, if I do the extraction, I would suggest we do all the areas where I got my nose in it, I smelled it, and it needs, there's urine in there, it needs to be pulled out. If we didn't want to do that on all areas and just do it on the most, then we might cut that down to, instead of 350, probably 200 is the worst areas, and then we could leave some of those bigger spots with just a topical treatment. Well, let's go look at it again. And I'm thinking, as I go back to this, that might have been an important aspect to my presentation as I took her back through it and I said, let's look at those areas. And I took that black light again and I showed her, see this area here? That's wall to wall. That really needs extraction. Well, let's go look in this room here. And you see how we've got this spot here and this spot here. And again, now I'm going into detail. This is why I recommend a deep extraction here, because that's not just a little dribble, that's a dump. And it's this big on top, it's this big underneath. See this in the book where you see that big stain? Well, that was only that big on top. Underneath, so I know what we're seeing. I've pulled carpet up like this before. I've seen the underside. I know what we're dealing with under there. So it really does need, if you're not going to replace it, it needs that extraction. That's my suggestion. We can do just a topical if you don't want to spend the money, but if it gets wet, if there are other pets here, they're going to want to remark. It's going to smell if it gets wet. That's just something you've got to be aware of. Well, let's go look down here and see why these aren't as bad. We go down the hall and I showed her big spot, that big. Another one close to it, that big. Another one on the corner, that big. So there's 3 big spots right there. And she looks at that and now she's not thinking about the money. She's thinking about the cost of having a tenant in this house smelling urine potentially. A new buyer in this house smelling urine potentially, right? And it wasn't long as we went back through those bedrooms where I was expecting that she might just say, yeah, these 2 bedrooms, let's just do topical and let's do the 200 on the deep in those others. Or possibly, let's not clean these bedrooms. But again, I let it be her decision. I wasn't putting my emotions, my facial expressions of, yeah, that looks like a lot. I wasn't doing that. My facial features were smiling, confident. I want to do the best I can for you. And that's the way I carry myself throughout my day with everything that I do. And so it wasn't long going back through things and looking at this that she just said, you know what, let's do it. Let's just do it all. And I said, okay, well, we'll get it started and we'll make it happen for you. I'll do the best that I can. And I went out and started working. And it was a little bit of a surprise to me. And that's what got me thinking, what was it that made the difference? And I think the biggest thing is your confidence. When you present confidently, this is what it's going to take. You don't undercut yourself. You give the best you can to you and to the company for the cost of the job that needs to be done. Recognize the time involved, the extra effort involved, the chemicals involved, all of that. That is what they're paying for. Recognize that we are extracting, we are sucking out the urine. Not 100%, and we tell them that, but we are pulling a lot of that out, and that is far better than any over-the-counter where they're just spraying something on, soaking something on, dabbing it up, and leaving urine down at the bottom. There's nothing that's going to do as good as extracting the urine. I'm confident about that. I know that's the case. That's my body language, okay? I'm happy. I choose to be happy throughout my day. It doesn't matter whether I'm sticking my nose in carpet smelling urine, sucking urine out, getting my shoes wet. None of that matters. I get to choose how I feel. And I choose to feel happy because I prefer to feel happy rather than tired, stressed, worn out, or hurt. Now, there are days where I get worn out and where I'm feeling that at the end of the day. And so I take a deep breath. And I found that breathing drastically increases my energy. And what happens a lot of times is when we are dragging through the day, we start breathing shallow. We start, hunching over and doing this. That hurts, man. That bad posture, that is worse on you, and that's going to hurt. So I stand up straight. I suck in my core when I'm doing stairs. I breathe when I'm feeling out of breath. Breathe, bring in that oxygen, and choose to be happy. And then I present the details. Seems to work for me. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's something you can implement in your life. No matter what job you're doing, no matter what you're doing, give more than you're paid for. Find something extra you can do. Work on yourself more than you do on your job. But give the job 100%. So if we're always doing that, we're confident that we're doing the best, we're loving ourselves and giving ourselves the best and working on ourselves. And that might be another thing. I am constantly listening to positive input, positive ebooks. Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza. I am constantly listening to this positive input, and that helps me. I'm going to a motivational seminar every day when I go to work, and that helps me stay at a high vibration and present that to the customers, and then just present the best with all confidence. Leave it in their hands. Tell them the best that we can do. Let them know that's what's happening.